Hello, everyone. Today we have a very special guest. We have Darrell Davis, who's getting his master's degree in public policy from the state of Florida. And the really cool thing is that Florida has not affected him and turned him into a Floridian. So welcome, Darrell. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for the introduction. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very grateful for you sharing your platform with me.
Okay. So the first important question we're going to ask is, do you have any opinions about your governor recently signing a bill teaching people about the victims of communism?
Yeah, so Ron DeSantis is not my governor. I am not a Florida resident.
Oh, sorry.
I merely just go to school here.
Who's your governor then?
Huh?
Do you still consider yourself so you have, it's Gavin, no, who's
Gavin
Newsom? Yeah. Oh God, he's just as bad. He's pretty bad.
Yeah. Gavin Newsom is his wife is radiant. His wife is completely and totally sublime. But yeah, I mean, Gavin Newsom is like a liberal politician, serves like the liberal capitalist, state. I think that the forces that want to administer California on a more autonomous basis, a lot of that rhetoric, though, comes from the right. Like, I would really like to see, the movement for California separation to take a more like provincial direction. But you asked me how I feel.
Wait, what is the separation movement? I'm not familiar. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, there are forces. So farther north from California, there's a separation movement of the Pacific Northwest to call it Cascadia and separate from the Dominion of New England and Washington. Now, California has an
balkanizing. Is that like balkanizing California?
No. Basically, so Oregon, Washington, Idaho.
So it's bigger than California.
Yeah. So the Cascadia separation or secessionists, they're in the Pacific Northwest. Now, secessionists in California, a lot of that is more within like the Silicon Valley and like kind of the more like investment, like kind of venture capitalist sector. But they want California to secede as well. And I think that what would be more viable is if California operated as more of a province and less as a state, because it's like the reason why California has these like water issues is because of like the institutionalized balkanization that like federalism and a United States government brings. Like, like Brazil before it was the Federal Republic of Brazil was a United States government. Indonesia, like, for a hot second was the United States of Indonesia. And Sukarno, the first leader of Indonesia, he quickly turned it into the Republic of Indonesia, and so were you going to say something?
Oh, no, I was listening. I was going to ask you what the difference was so that people kind of understood. Like, what is the difference between the United States versus a federal republic? Okay.
Well, what a federal republic or what a confederacy does is it takes these different entities and it puts them, everybody wears their own clothes, but they walk on the same road, so to speak. That's what a federal republic or a confederacy would do. And like, that's why, and as opposed to a United States government, that kind of everybody is within the same realm, but walks their own road with their own clothes, if that makes any sense.
Could you be a little bit more, maybe, can you give us an example maybe of how Switzerland does something different than the US? Because it's not very concrete for me yet.
Let's see. Well, I mean, yeah, the cantons, like they don't like policy in Switzerland is not dictated by the cantons in the same way. Like French Switzerland, German Switzerland, Romance Switzerland, and Italian Switzerland don't go on the same road. They're all different identities, right? And all even different nations, different like language communities, but as policy and as politics, they operate as Switzerland. Whereas the United States government kind of model does not really allow for that sort of level of cohesion.
Oh, I see. Okay. So it seems like, at least, I don't know, have you seen what Mitch McConnell most recently said about this watered down Voting Rights Act bill about 2 days ago?
I have not.
Okay, basically he invokes the states' rights. And it seems like states' rights is only used, for example, the Supreme Court once said that states' rights is used to invoke, to like defend bigotry, but then states' rights can't be used to, like, say, grow marijuana. And so it seems like under the guise of neutrality, everything is partisan, and states' rights is really a cover for being reactionary, like at least here.
States' rights is totally a cover for being reactionary. States' rights is a cover for being reactionary. States' rights is a cover for basically enforcing the forced partition that has occurred in the North American space. Mexico isn't actually Mexico. Mexico is the United Mexican States. Mexico is the United States government. And that's kind of, and that's given like a lot of leeway to, the drug cartels. It's really helped like destabilize and keep Mexico kind of, in this like uneven development. Bring it back to the United States domestically. Yes, like the United States government is undergirded by the idea of states' rights and by the idea that like states can dictate their own policy and sort of can't operate in a way that's non-supplementary to the central government, and can be like an independent entity with its own consciousness, separate from a federal government, and definitely separate from any sort of centralized authority.
That makes sense. Just curious. You said, well, I met Darrell on TikTok. He's a new TikToker, but he's very good. So you said that you, in public policy, you study environmental policy. Given the coming apocalypse of climate change, I can't think of a different word. What is to be done? I know it's a very broad thing, but since you said you study environmental policy, like what's going on? What do people need to know? If there's something you can tell people quickly that they wouldn't know about and that they should go for it.
Yes. Can I quickly answer the question you asked me about Ron DeSantis? I know,
go for it.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Florida has a lot of like influence, especially from Miami, of Gusanos. Yes, very.
But don't. By the way, don't worry. I will say all the awkward things, so you don't have to.
Yeah, no, it's fine. But yeah, like Miami, Florida has like open wanted terrorists, of the Republic of Cuba are like in Miami, just living normal lives.
Wow.
People who bombed like schools and and other things. Like, yes, it does not surprise me that the governor of Florida would. Not only is anti-communism like in America's, in the DNA of the United States, but COINTELPRO. Did it end? Did it really? Did McCarthyism?
Do we even know what it is? Like, did they even tell us everything they did? Or what do we know, what we don't know? There's so much questions to be answered.
Yes, definitely. Quickly about environmentalism, so make sure it's not weaponized by liberals and reactionaries to keep the global South what it's now known as the third world, what it was known as. Make sure that that's not weaponized as a battering ram against the development of the global South. I mean,
okay. Have you just to let us know if this is like you haven't had a chance, but have you gotten a chance to look at this alleged Green New Deal that the White House proposed?
Yes, I've studied the Green New Deal.
Oh my God. Okay, fantastic. Yes. Okay, go. Okay, so what is your initial opinion about it? Explain what you mean by how they're going to use the Green New Deal as a cudgel against third world countries, global South, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah. So I think that the Green New Deal, I mean, for starters, the rhetoric of it, like what was the New Deal? Like it was, I mean, prior to the New Deal, a lot of, the United States wasn't electrified, all of this other stuff. But like, the Green New Deal, like, it wasn't a new paradigm. It was a New Deal, like, and a lot of it left a lot of, doors open for reactionaries and even liberals to like, to undo it. The Green New Deal. Well, I mean, the New Deal in and of itself wasn't enough. So if you're modeling this green policy after the Green New Deal, like, is it enough? Like the problem isn't like green isn't infrastructure. It's like the economic structure that exists to make the infrastructure what it is. And that allows for infrastructure to like, not be taken care of.
So what is your initial, you said, okay, so I guess since I don't actually know what you're studying, can you just lead the conversation to where you want to go, because I am not familiar with what you know, if that makes sense.
Okay. So my program doesn't actually have like an emphasis. We just kind of study public policy.
What is public policy then?
Of it. So public policy is defined as a plan of action that's deliberatively figured on and adopted by government to solve, address, or rectify social ills. Some programs have you take an emphasis, but my program does not.
Okay, does the U.S. government actually try to solve social ills? Because I don't see them acting on the behalf of the American people on anything.
No. I mean, structurally, it is not designed to do that. It's structurally designed to basically to move in the rhythm of power, capitalism, and racism, and against the people and against popular will. The United States is not a democracy. It is a republic. It is a federal. It's
oligarchy.
It's a federal state,
Well, Republican, it's a little bit doubt. I mean, technically, Republican means land without a king. And given the amount of power the president has, I kind of hesitate to call it even that.
Yeah, that's so valid. That's so real.
I mean, we've covered this extensively, but I've written an article about James Madison's literal quote saying that the purpose of the government is to protect those with property from those. He said from those without property, but he meant from those who are property.
Right.
But so it's, I mean, it says this in this is in the Declaration. Like, you don't have to dig deep. Like, literally, it's in the Declaration of Independence. We're here to kill those. Yeah. So I guess I'm trying to figure out this show is meant to explain to people that everything they think is a lie, and they can't vote their way out of problems. And these are new problems that you haven't solved. And you have to kind of figure it's just basically getting those two concepts in. So any comments you want to make about that?
I think that voting within a reactionary or regressive paradigm is quite useless. I think that voting in a paradigm that's progressive and, that, is predicated on popular power, of course do that. I do not think that. I think that organization, coordination, and, the construction of a government in waiting and a mass movement and mass organization and like the implementation and administration of the mass line, I think that's what you do in reactionary and regressive paradigms, and maybe internal voting, but voting on a federal or like national level, if you live in a more unitary paradigm,
Okay. This brings us to the first Lenin piece. You just gave me an idea for us to read.
In college, I came across some left comms. They were not nice. They were because I also identify, as I told you, I identify myself as also an Orthodox Marxist Leninist. And so, Of course, left comms are against Orthodox Marxism, Leninism. So.
What? I don't know. It's a big thing, but what I'm going to say is it's like a big Western affliction. And what they do is they compare their imagination with every socialist state. And of course, compared to their imagination, every socialist state fails because it's not your imagine. Like they imagine Star Trek and they get a little mad when it looks like Mad Max.
Yeah. The papers are full of news about the preparation for the election. Almost every day we are informed either of a new government interpretation striking out of the voters list one more category of unreliable citizens.
This sounds really familiar to you, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so in the state that you currently are in 2000, they just like threw out God knows how many voters, and it was decided by like 500 votes, like something stupid. But so can you read this sentence again so that people can again see the similarities between Tsarist Russia and modern America? Okay.
I mean, yeah, totally. I mean, like,
okay. So let's start with almost. Okay, can you just read this almost every day so that people.
Almost every day we are informed either of a new government interpretation striking out of the voters list one more category of unreliable citizens, or of new persecutions, prohibitions of meetings, suppression of newspapers, and the arrest of suspected electors or candidates. The Black Hundreds have raised their heads, whooping and hooting more insolently than ever.
Yeah, the Black Hundreds are basically these like they are. But I guess in the modern American context, I know it's kind of weird. I call the White Army kind of like the KKK, but the Black Hundreds are also like the KKK in that their main thing was to kill peasants who were trying to free themselves from slavery, more or less.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, so
anarchists and fascists have the same colors. I find it so strange.
What? Who has it?
Anarchists and fascists, they have like the same colors. It's so strange.
What colors do fascists have? I thought they had to keep changing their flag every few years because people recognize it. And
yeah, so sometimes fascists in a European context, sometimes fascists don brown. And in the early years, it was black. Like Mussolini's fascist group, they wore black. And
they were the black shirts. Okay. Interesting.
In Germany, they don brown. Do you want me to read more of Lenin?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. The parties that are objectionable to the government are also preparing for the elections. These parties are confident, and justly confident, that the mass of the voters will have their say, will take advantage of the elections to express their true convictions in spite of all the tricks, pinpricks, and restrictions, great and small, that are directed against the voters. This confidence is based on the fact that the most ferocious persecutions, the most intolerable pinpricks, will at most eliminate hundreds, thousands, let's say tens of thousands of voters throughout Russia. But this will not alter the sentiment and the attitude of the masses towards the government. 10 or 20,000 voters can be struck off the list in St. Petersburg. But this will only cause the 150,000 voters in the capital to withdraw into their shells, as it were, to lie low for a time. They will not disappear, however, and their mass sentiment will not change. But if it does change, it will not be in favor of the government. Therefore, unless the electoral law is radically amended, unless all remnants of electoral legality are finally trampled upon, and they can still be further trampled upon by means of systemic arrest of electors, one may expect the very worst from Stolypin.
Okay, Stolypin was the Tsar's minister, and he's the one that came up. So there was the Bulletin Duma. That was the first Duma. Pyotr Stolypin was the Tsar's minister of internal affairs, i.e., he's like the Homeland Security Minister, for lack of a better word. And he basically had this created this extensive police state that was insane, and there were 4 million people in it, and they there was their secret, it was a precursor to our FBI. And the strange thing is that the Hoover Institute, for some odd reason, has all these Okranophiles magically smuggled in, God knows how, but he was assassinated in, I believe, 1910 or 1911. But he was totally a horrible person, and he was trying to he was trying to basically keep the Tsar alive despite the will of the people, I guess. Go ahead.
Understood. There is still no doubt that the mood of the masses will decide the elections, and the decisions will certainly not be in favor of the government and its black hundreds. All non-supporters of the government are placing their hopes in the masses of voters. If you examine carefully what this hope in the masses really amounts to, what the attitude of the various parties is towards the masses, you will observe the vast difference between the bourgeois parties and the party of the proletariat.
Yep.
I just want to say that, in the context of Tsarist Russia, the ability to vote is such a privilege. It's not something that most of the society can do, because over 80% of the country is illiterate. They're peasants. They're completely isolated from they live, they can't just walk to the cities and go to,
Okay, actually, let me. I believe 2 episodes ago, Janet will we'll provide a link. If you're watching live, we won't. But for the tape delay people, we can. But we covered the system in Tsarist Russia, where basically it was it had 3 levels of electoral colleges, and only literally half of the house was reserved to inbred relatives of the Tsar. And then the richer you were, the more vote, the more power, the more your vote was worth. So you're absolutely right. Okay, go for it. Okay, so we're here now.
The cadets are at the head of the liberal bourgeois parties. During the elections of the first Duma, they shamefully betrayed the struggle. They refused to take part in the boycott. They themselves went tamely to the elections and drew the raw masses after them. Now they are placing their hopes on the interest of the masses and on the restrictions.
No, in the inertness.
In the inertness of the masses, my bad. And on the restrictions which have been imposed on agitation and on the left parties' conduct of their election campaign. The cadets' hope in the masses is hope in the immaturity and servitude of the masses. He argues as follows: the masses will not understand our program and tax us. They will not go beyond a peaceful and legal, the most peaceful and timid protest, not because they do not wish to, but because they will not be allowed to. They will vote for us, for the left. For the lefts have no newspapers, no meetings, no leaflets, no security against arbitrary arrest and persecution. So thinks the cadet. And he proudly raises his eyes to heaven and says, I thank thee, Lord, that I am not as one of those extremists. I am not a revolutionary. I shall be able to adjust myself most obediently and abjectly to any measures. I shall even get my election forms from the peaceful innovators.
Okay, so the cadets stand for the Constitutional Democratic Party, but for all purposes, they behave just like our Democratic Party in every single way. Like, look at how Obama, like, nobody fought back. Like, how many voters did which was or even Brian Kemp and Stacey, what's her name? What was her? That election, he was the secretary of state who was overseeing elections, and he threw out all her voters, and she did not fight. And exactly, they will adjust most obediently and abjectly to any measures, and even she'll get yes, literally that. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. They'll all be like, and then they'll probably be like, oh, like you have like, oh, American people have like iPhones and stuff. You don't need actual social justice. Let's not fight.
But you have iPhone to serve your employer so that you can be at work at 24/7. Like, that's why they allow you to have iPhone. So that they blur the lines between work and home, and the employer can always contact you for unpaid labor.
Definitely.
Okay.
Hence, the whole of the cadets election campaign is directed to frightening the masses and the Black Hundred. With
the Black 100 Days. So basically, they're doing what the Democrats do about the Republicans. So they're saying, oh my God, the Black Hundreds, that's like their Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So hence, the whole of the cadets campaign is directed to frightening the masses with the Black Hundred's danger and the danger from the extreme left parties, to adapting themselves to the Philistinism, cowardice, and flabbiness of the petty bourgeois, and to persuading him that the cadets are the safest, most modest, most moderate, and most well-behaved of people. Every day, the cadet papers ask their readers, "Are you afraid, Philistine? Rely on us. We are not going to frighten you. We are opposed to violence. We are obedient to the government. Rely on us. We shall do everything for you as far as possible."
As far as possible, as in like the Democratic Party, it's like affordable access to healthcare.
And behind the backs of the frightened Philistines, the cadets resort to ye trick to assure the government of their loyalty, to assure the lefts of their love of liberty, to assure the peaceful renovators of their affinity with their party and their election forms.
Bingo. Literally, that's exactly what, like to me, yesterday, I was so shocked. Joanne Reed, who is allegedly a liberal, yesterday,
right.
Well, she had a clip where she's like, oh, the Republicans are going against the U.S. military, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, so why haven't you bleeping, instead of asking the Democrats, why haven't you bleeping defunded the military if the Republicans want to do it? They're like, oh, Russia, China, Asian people, faraway people, foreigners. And she was like frightening people with that. And it's like, America has the only enemy right now, there is no enemy, but the biggest threat to people's lives is climate change. And the biggest emanator of greenhouse gases is the U.S. military. You have to choose one, the U.S. military or life on Earth. You can't have both. And
right.
It's so responsible.
And the Democrats are like the biggest purveyor of like violence of them all, because they weaponize like queer liberation and LGBTQ struggle like against the world, and then use like it like opportunistically. They like say that, oh, like, you know, like queer people can like join the military and like murder like hordes of like people, like, you know, too. Like they're the ones who like, you know, like weaponize the stuff. Like, I mean, because it's like, I mean, who like oversaw like the demolition of any sort of like productive economy? It was the Democrats. I mean, who in the 90s started like out Reaganing Reagan? It was like the Democrats. Democrats are like the most violent of them all. And they're the ones who want war with like Russia and China to like, you know, restart markets basically.
Yeah, Republicans do that too, but like their constituency is slightly different, so it's a little different type of war, I guess. Their constituency is old money, old manufacturing, old bourgeoisie. So they and the Democrats is new money, but slightly different tactics, same goal.
And the Democrats will, I mean, they'll do like a stealthy like color revolution and just like, I mean, you know, destroy the national economy. Whereas like Republicans will just like everything. They'll invade. They'll just like, they won't have any tax, like any, just like, you know, no enlightenment of the masses, no agitation to rouse the masses, no exposition of consistent democratic slogans,
yes.
only haggling for seats behind the backs of the frightened Philistines.
Yes.
Such is the election campaign of all parties of the liberal bourgeoisie, from the non-party people, Tovarishka, to the Party of Democratic Reforms.
Bingo. Literally, yesterday, haggling for seats behind the backs of frightened Philistines. Yesterday, Pramila Jayapal tweeted out, or maybe 2 days ago, something like, lower the age of Medicare. And it's like, dude, you just changed your slogan, and you're not going to lower the age of Medicare for all. So what you've indicated to us is that you're not going to even tweet about Medicare for all anymore, which was what you used to do.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So, go ahead.
I don't know if you were able to see like the Young Turks like outburst against Aaron. That was ugly. Like there's no word I can. That was ugly.
Okay. We may have some clips. Do you want to do a clip of that? Do you want to do a takedown of them after we read this?
Yeah, I mean, you're not asking me. You're asking.
No, I'm asking you. Do you want to do one?
Oh, yeah, that would be fine.
I did not know that you wanted to talk about that, but we can. Okay. After we finish reading this, we'll do a takedown clip. Okay. Okay.
The attitude of the Workers' Party towards the masses is exactly the reverse. The important thing for us is not to get seats in the Duma by means of compromises. On the contrary, those seats are important not only because and insofar as they can serve to develop the political consciousness of the masses, to raise them to a higher political level, to organize them for the sake of Philistine happiness.
Wait. To organize them not for the
sake of Philistine happiness, not for the sake of tranquility, order, and peaceful bourgeois bliss, but for the struggle. The struggle for the complete emancipation of labor from all exploitation and all oppression.
Yes, this sentence right here is going to be our weekly Len quote, but this explains the main difference. For example, the Democrats' emphasis on peaceful protests when it's like, you are the U.S. government, you have nuclear weapons, shut the bleep up about peacefulness, like tranquility, bourgeoisie bliss. Yes, it versus the complete emancipation of labor from all, as in, yeah, it's like you do not need to behave yourself who cares what the oppressor thinks. They need to stop oppressing you. And like that is the main difference in the mindset. And the Democrats try to push the first mindset as opposed to workers of the world unite, which is the second mindset. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, and if you emancipate all of labor, it allows you to emancipate everything else, because if labor is emancipated and can dictate their own national trajectory, they don't want to get sick and injured. So they're gonna have healthcare. They're not going to be seen as like articles of labor extraction for capitalists. So like the burden of like constant reproduction isn't going to be on women like that, and that has implications for a lot of different people and a lot of different like sexual and gender expressions. Yeah. Only for the purpose.
Oh, hold on. Yeah. And I've seen your TikToks where you were mentioning the difference between human construct of gender versus biological gender. And that was very illuminating because like, I actually don't focus on that. Like it's just, not something, but I was very illuminated by it because yes, there's so many cultural ideas of gender that's not biological, but these people are fooled into thinking they're biological.
Yeah, I think what a lot of like detractors didn't understand in that tweet is I was talking to like other cis, huh?
You mean TikTok?
Yeah, on TikTok.
Yeah, he said tweet. Just.
Oh, okay. Whoops. Because you were saying that you saw what I said on TikTok.
Yeah, and I loved it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was. So I got a lot of smoke for that. I got a lot of like heat from people. I don't know. If you saw in the comment section, and I don't think that they were realizing that like I was talking to other cis men who may or may not like encounter like a transgender woman, in a club or in a social setting. And like, when the issue of disclosure comes up, and the issue and like kind of like the subject of gender comes up about like how to think about it and how you need to think about it as like a cis man to not be problematic and to not like basically posit faux masculinity and stuff like that. Yeah.
Another one I really liked about yours is there was a couple, he's white and the wife, I believe, is black or maybe Latino. I can't, but she's like, baby, would you marry, like something like, would you move to Kentucky with me if it was 70 years ago? And he's like,
yeah.
that was
she was
like,
asking
why was she asking him?
if they were in Kentucky 70 years ago together, would the white male partner date the black female partner? Or I don't know if she's biologically I don't know. I
assumed that she was his wife, but it doesn't matter. Like it was still a ridiculous question to ask because, well, what you said is right. It's like like everything is different, and it's like he can't say yes because they could get killed. Her entire family could get killed for that.
Yes. His entire life. I mean, and even if they don't like kill him physically, they would kill him socially and economically. Like he wouldn't be able to get any sort of like employment. He would have to like live on like the outskirts of town. Like, no, like black by association is real. And like, it's like, I mean, yeah, but
like I said, there are couples who like moved the mountains to fall in love with each other. And like there are, Loving versus Virginia, I believe that was the case. She, I believe, was black, Mildred, Richard Loving. And but like they had to move out of the state in order to get married because the state they were in, it was illegal for them to get married. But yeah. I mean, because it's like when European people from like Europe moved to like a settler colony and there's only like a few hundred of them. I mean, so much pressure is on like that European woman to produce, to produce white children and to teach like whiteness and to really kind of inculcate and solidify their like kind of break from Europe, and to like, grow themselves. It's like, that's why like, in a settler colony, like the idea that like Israel is like this, is like this queer paradise, this like gay paradise. Oh, like, no, that's entirely propaganda from the Israeli government. It's called pinkwashing.
Yes.
We should have Max Blumenthal on sometime to talk about this, but yeah. And what people don't actually tell you about is these lost colonies. Like the lost colony of Roanoke is not lost because what happened was that like about 10 miles away, you started seeing these like indigenous children with blonde hair and red hair. So they were like, screw you, we're going to go live with them. And they decided to like form a community with the indigenous people in like, and so, yeah, there are millions of stories of these lost colonies. And of course, but so you're saying is right about that. You're like, they perpetuate that myth, but reality tells you a whole other story.
Yeah, I didn't know that about the Roanoke, the lost colony of Roanoke. I did not.
Like
the colony of Roanoke. I didn't know that. I did not know that. Thank you for
Yeah. And this was even like in England papers, like back then they identified what happened. So this was like later invented by America as usual.
Okay. Cool. Back to the reading. Only for this purpose and only for the extent that they help us to achieve it are seats in the Duma and the whole election campaign important for us. The Workers' Party places all its hopes on the masses who are not frightened, not passively submissive, and who do not humbly bear the yoke, who are politically conscious, demanding, and militant. The Workers' Party must treat with contempt the usual liberal method of frightening the Philistine with the boogie of the Black Hundred danger. The task of the Social Democrats is to make the masses conscious of the real danger, of the actual aims in the struggle. These forces whose strength lies not in the Duma, which find full expression not in Duma debates, and which will settle the question of Russia's future outside the Duma.
Bingo. Exactly. Like, this is why you should not fall into their stupid every 4 years, this horrible cycle. And in the next 4 years, it'll be like Ted Cruz or Tom Cotton, like somebody worse than Trump. And then we'll have to wait for them to praise. Okay. Anyways, go on.
Yeah, like if you were like at brunch during the Obama years, like don't go out in like the Trump years, because you're just going to confuse people.
Yeah.
And then like if you're in brunch now,
Enjoy brunch.
Enjoy brunch. And then if in 2024, like Jared Kushner or I don't like
Cotton, or whatever fascist.
Yeah, or like if Ron DeSantis becomes president, please stay at brunch. And all of like the anti-fascist, left wingers, like, we would stand and we would not confuse like people who are disenchanted with the bullshit. Yeah,
exactly.
The Workers' Party therefore warns the masses against the clandestine election tricks of the cadet bourgeoisie, against its stultifying cry. Entrust to us, lawyers, professors, and enlightened landlords, of combating the Black 100 danger.
That's exactly what the Democrat says. Like, trust us, we are experts, and we'll fight the Republic. Like, they don't ever. In fact, Obama did something. I'm trying to remember. Janet, do you remember what Obama like dismantled? I can't remember his organ. You remember, or are you? I don't. What was he? He had a big grassroots organization that he dismantled. I can't remember its name though.
I don't know.
Okay, I'll figure it out. But
it must have been early on, because
he did it in 2009. So 2008, it helped him because everyone hated Bush, and he had the biggest wave of like a mass push. The first thing he did was dismantle this organization so that they couldn't protest against his like awful measures that he intended to do. But I'll figure this out after the show, and then we can just flash the name.
So many people were like, people actually thought that like his rise meant the end of like racism. People actually, and even in 2016, people were like, even so quote unquote so-called anarchists were all like, oh yeah, like racism's really a thing. Like Black people aren't like really oppressed anymore. Like whatever because you have to say really, right? Like people
under Obama, people who are identified as of being descendants of slaves saw the biggest loss in wealth in U.S. history.
Yeah, the biggest loss in wealth.
Yeah. I remember I got into this fight with this Pulitzer Prize winner of the 1619 Project, where I had to explain to her that like Black, she was like, she somehow did not understand that under Obama, in Boston itself, it went from negative $5 to negative $64,000. And I had to explain to her that negative 5 is much higher. So that is indeed a big, like, and I'm like, how the bleep did you get a bloody, well, we all know, she deserves her Pulitzer if we understand the original intent of Pulitzer, but it was like so painful.
What's the original intent of Pulitzer? Can you explain?
USS Maine. Okay, so right before the Spanish Civil War, I believe the U.S. government like blew up this ship, or I forgot why, but the USS Maine was blown up. So Joseph Pulitzer and William Hearst invented this new type of journalism that they called yellow journalism, where they said, remember the Maine. And that was Pulitzer.
Okay. So yeah. I knew what yellow journalism was. I did not know that it was connected to the Pulitzer, and that's kind of like where
that's him,
Pulitzer Prize comes.
And the prize is named after him or from his foundation or something. But it goes to show you, like, what did this like? We don't want to start on everything else Pulitzer and William Hearst have done in the next century, but because we won't stop talking. But it just shows you how denigrated, how little respect the establishment has to even pretend that they respect journalism. Like, they can't even pretend this in front of you by having the Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah. You can't love journalism if you don't love truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Workers' Party tells the masses trust only your socialist consciousness and your socialist organization. To surrender priority in the struggle and the right to lead it to the liberal bourgeoisie is tantamount to selling the cause of liberty to grandiloquent phrases. for the tawdry brilliance of fashionable and gaudy signboards.
Bingo.
No Black Hundred danger in the Duma can be as harmful as the corruption of the minds of the masses who are blindly following the liberal bourgeoisie, its slogans, and its candidates in its policy.
Bingo. That's how you get Trump. That's how you get Reagan. That's how you get, like, seriously, like, if the past 500, whatever, if the entire existence as we know it has not taught us this, I don't know what will.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how, like, social democrats basically, like, I mean, set the stage for, like, Hitler and Franco.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Among the masses, and I don't want to, like, because I mean, I know, like, left-wing social democrats can be worked with. Like, I'm not.
No, we're not even pretending that, because we know that in 1934 or 1933, the Social Democratic Party voted for the enabling act that enabled Hitler to rise to power, and they clapped for Hitler while singing Deutschland, Deutschland über alles. Dead.
Yeah,
to
no.
me. That
Yeah,
was the point. Social democracy died to me. Go away. You're not. You're yeah. If you can't stop Hitler, you're useless. Go away is what I tell them.
You're right. You're right. Totally. Social democrats in the West suck. Social democrats in Asia, it's
a different story. I agree. But yeah, I will have to get to. Yes, I agree with you. Even in Latin America, it's a different story. But yes, in the
West, social democrats.
In the United States. Okay.
Yes. Among the masses to whom the Workers' Party is appealing, the strongest numerically are the peasants and various sections of the petty bourgeoisie. They are more determined than the cadets, more honest, and 1,000 times more capable of fighting in politics than.
But in politics.
But in politics, they are too often led by the cadet windbags.
Bingo.
Even now, what's up? Even now, they are wavering between the militant proletariat and the compromising bourgeoisie.
Yes. At this point, Russia had about 100 million people who were rural and maybe about 2 million urban people. So it's a lot. Like, I mean, in America, we don't have those numbers of the rural population, but all these liberals are like, oh, you can't talk to people in West Virginia. They're too stupid or whatever. And it's like, no, it's you.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you have to, like, you cannot get change without, like, I have never seen change without the alliance of urban people and rural people. That's where the hammer and sickle comes from. Hammer for urban workers, sickle for rural people.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that there is a divide between industry and agriculture is something that's, like, you know, that's upheld by capitalism. That's upheld by capitalism.
Exactly.
The industry builds the nation, agriculture feeds the nation, like, all should be under popular administration and control.
Exactly. And not by Monsanto, or is it whatever farm company now it's under.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm pretty sure it's Monsanto. You're correct. I'm pretty sure, unless Monsanto, like, went away, but I don't think it did.
No, it's here. Yeah. They merged with Bayer. If you
Bayer Monsanto, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The advocates of the bloc with the cadets are not only doing harm to the proletariat and to the whole cause of liberty, they are prejudicing the development of political consciousness among the urban and rural poor.
Bingo.
They are not performing their immediate duty, which is to free these people from the influence of the liberal bourgeoisie. Yes.
Okay, and this is why I hate. This is why we're going to critique TYT, because they're also not doing this as the home of the progressives or whatnot. They are not performing their intermediate duty, which is to free these people from the influence of you should not be the liberal bourgeoisie. Okay, go ahead.
And it was weird because, like, I hadn't seen, like, the Young Turks since, like, in years, and I went from, like, nothing to, like, seeing that, and I was all like, whoa, like,
yeah, I hadn't seen them in years, and then they would decide to defame a friend of the show, Aaron Mate.
Yeah.
But then like, that caused people to look at them deeper, and it's like they have always been horrible. It's just that when it seems like there was a section where they were mostly covering burning time in between 2014 and 2017. And that was the only time where, and it's not because they are politically enlightened, but because they changed their coverage to tail the Bernie campaign, and that itself brought political awareness, despite of the Young Turks, and not and let's not even start talking about their name.
Yeah, definitely. Look at the Trudovics, the popular socialists, and the socialist revolutionaries. They too are wavering and are also mainly occupied with plans for deals with the cadets. The leaders of the Trudovics, having failed to form a party of their own, are multiplying their Duma mistakes tenfold by appealing to the masses for the cadets. Anikian, who through newspaper reporters Zilkin in Tovarish.
That's another newspaper. That's a cadet newspaper.
Mm-hmm. This is downright treachery to the cause of the peasant struggle, downright betrayal of the peasants to the liberal landlords who robbed the peasants by means of a fair compensation as thoroughly as the forefathers did in 1861.
That was when they abolished serfdom, but they didn't. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And as for the popular socialists, when the cadets are laughing at them and calling them second cadets,
second reserve cadets. That sounds like how the AOC, how the Democrats deal with the AOCs. And Wretch means speech, and that's another cadet newspaper. Okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you. Their leaders, Anensky and others, also appeal for blocks with the cadets. Their tiny party, which according to Tovarish, a paper which is favorably disposed to them, is weaker even than the party of peaceful plunder, and which has only 2,000 members throughout Russia, is a mere appendage of the cadets.
I like how he calls the cadets the party of peaceful plunder. I think we should call the Democratic. This is going to be our Lenin insult for the week. It's not the Democratic Party, but the party of peaceful plunder.
The party of peaceful plunder, and the party of like faux leftists, like moonlighting to like confuse people.
Yeah, so yeah, but like some of them, like the squad.
Yeah.
Okay.
The position of the socialist revolutionaries is also ambiguous, both in the October period and in the period of the first Duma. They concealed the fact that they had split with the socialists. They continued to collaborate with them and jointly published the same newspapers. Today, they are not conducting any open and independent struggle. They are sufficiently broadly, openly, and sharply attacking the second reserve cadets, are not supplying the masses with adequate data for criticizing the party, and are not making any appraisal in principle of the whole election campaign and all electoral agreements in general.
I wonder if the word "the split" made me wonder if Trotsky's behind this. So I'm gonna have to check later. He probably is.
Yeah, I mean, Trotsky didn't even join like the movement until like the last like 10 seconds.
1917. Yeah. But it's funny because I tried like last week. It was so embarrassing. No, this was about 2 weeks ago. This Trotskyite party was like, they were crying that the DSA was like, said ice pick to them, and I'm like, shut up, you wiener! Like they made this big article about somebody on the DSA trolled them with the word ice pick and how they're encouraging violence against leftists, and I'm like, be quiet, just go away. Like, this is like, you're literally like, this is a meme, and you're complaining about Twitter memes sent in by a DSA member, which is probably a teenager. Okay.
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah. This is why you need to stay away from Trotskyites, because, Trotskyites are not going to be the ones liberating Berlin. They're going to be like splitting into 100 little different parties.
Yeah, and saying that the liberation of Berlin was too authoritarian. Stalinist.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
It is the great historical duty of the Workers' Party to help to create an independent political party of the working class. Those who advocate blocks with the cadets hinder the fulfillment of this duty.
AOC, somebody should tweet this quote out at AOC Ilhan or whoever at the squad who claims to be socialist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. And does Ilhan Omar or like AOC, like, do they come from like progressive, like were they was Ilhan Omar like a progressive in Somalia, or like was her family like caping for Islamism, you know?
I don't know what her family was, but there is an extremely strange picture of her when she was a nobody. When you're a nobody, you probably can't get the president of Turkey to meet with you, but she did. And that's been very strange because she voted present on the Armenian genocide, and she keeps demonizing China on the fake, I can never pronounce that city.
Xinjiang.
How do you pronounce it? Xinjiang. Okay. Yeah. And you're learning Chinese. Okay. Xinjiang. And so there is I only found a picture of Ilhan when she was maybe she was elected to the Minnesota state representative, but Minnesota state representatives do not get to sit with the president of Turkey. That just does not happen unless something weird is going on, is what I'm going to say. Right.
Right. I mean, yeah, Turkey like led the charge initially in trying to overthrow Bashar al-Assad, but we'll get to that in the TYT, I guess, portion.
Okay. You want to do the okay, go for it. Okay.
Another great duty that confronts the Workers' Party is to free the masses of the ruined, poverty-stricken, and doomed urban petty bourgeoisie and peasantry from the influence of the ideas and prejudices of the liberal bourgeoisie. The fulfillment of this duty is also being hindered by those who advocate blocks with the cadets. They are not divorcing the peasants from the liberals, but are strengthening this unnatural alliance, which is fatal to the cause of liberty and to the cause of the proletariat. They are not wanting the peasant masses.
Wait, they're not warning the peasant masses. Go ahead.
They are not warning the peasant masses against the liberals' backstairs politics, or rather political intrigue for the distribution of seats in the Duma, but are sanctioning this intrigue by taking part in it.
Yeah, I mean, just so we know, the entire Obama cabinet, according to WikiLeaks, was picked by Citibank. That's the kind of backstair politics, political intrigue that takes place when Citibank gets to pick a guy in 1999 who said that, what did he say? Too big to jail. He coined in, so Citibank nominated for Attorney General a guy they knew who believed that they were too big to jail. What kind of messed up country is this?
Yeah.
And that's the kind of political intrigue that happens all the time that American people don't even begin to understand.
Barely a country at all. Definitely not a nation. Down with all the blocks. The Workers' Party must conduct its election campaign independently, not only in words, but in deeds. It must provide the whole people and the masses of the proletariat in particular with a model of courageous and consistent criticism based on principle.
Bingo. TYT, you're not doing this? Okay.
I 100% agreement, 150%. Only in that way shall we succeed in rallying the masses for effective participation in the struggle for freedom, and not in the sham liberalism of the cadet betrayers of freedom.
Bingo. we're going to put the link here. Go home, read it very carefully and find, I know this is, I don't usually give homework or anything like this, but put under each paragraph Lenin wrote, put modern examples, and it piles up a lot. Like if you go through even like a month. Okay, so before do you have a TYT pick that you want to take down? Like a clip that you want to take down?
No, you've got it.
You want to do Syria?
Yeah, I
Ready?
just because
Many
Yes.
people are criticizing Barack Obama, saying that his rationale, or the psychological reason that he wants to now attack Syria, is because he feels the need to back up statements he's made in the past in regard to setting a red
Who
line
cares about the
chemical weapons
I'm
there.
sorry. Who
Now
cares
he
about the
went on the
psychology?
news recently and said that that's not actually what he said all along. Let's watch.
First of all, I didn't set a red line. The world set a red line.
No,
The world set a red line
the
when
world.
governments representing 98% of the world's population said,
No, because okay, can you pause this just a second, Janet? Okay, no, because when this world order was created, neither India nor China existed, and that itself explains it is false. For China, they had to replace it with the Republic of Taiwan, with Republic of China, Taiwan, which is there's like a reactionary state, and India was,
India.
yeah. So this is a lie, but go on.
and passed a treaty forbidding their use even when countries are engaged in war.
Yeah.
Congress set a red line when it ratified that treaty. And so when I said in a press conference that my calculus about what's happening in Syria would be altered by the use of chemical weapons, which the overwhelming consensus of humanity says is wrong, that wasn't something I just kind of made up. I didn't pluck it out of thin air.
No.
If you kind of did, because the United Nations literally said that Bashar al-Assad was responsible for that. Like,
Which one is this? You know, Duma, is this the Ghouta one or the Duma one? 2013. Ghouta. Yes, they said, yeah, they made it up. You're right.
seeing Jimmy Dore on this just like drives home how deep, I guess, his falling out with Cenk Uygur was or is or whatever.
No, I have not. But we will be interviewing Steph Zamorano soon. So we could ask her when we interview her. But I kind of briefly perused a little bit of the clip. I've only seen what Ben Mankiewicz, he actually makes a great point, says, but I have not seen the horrific point that Cenk said, according to people on Twitter. So this will be my surprise reaction. It's pretty bad, I hear. But go on, Janet.
The first of, I believe, 3 days of tour of Sweden and Russia. Now, just for, I guess, historical context, we do have him speaking in August 2012. Let's hear what he had to say about the Red Line then.
We have been very clear to the Assad regime, but also to other players on the ground that a red line for us is we start saying a whole bunch of chemical weapons moving around or being utilized.
Moving around. Who would be moving them around? You.
That was 2012. We also have earlier this year, May 2013.
With respect to what I've said in the past around red line, what I've said is that the use of chemical weapons are something that the civilized world has recognized should be out of bounds.
Well, that last one at least does seem like an evolution of the statement of what he was saying.
So as always with President Obama, you get the sense that, well, I think he's right. There's a lot of wordplay there. But, you know, it seemed like he said it was a red line. In the second clip, it certainly seemed like he said it was a red line. But at the same time, he did couch it in terms of the, you know, historical standards and the community, international community.
And for us, what exactly does for us mean?
Yeah, and what does changing the calculus mean? I mean, we spend a great deal of time in this country, both on the good shows like this one and on the horrible shows, like being like, hey, you know, we got him. You said something and now you're doing something else. So fucking what? Like, it's not, that doesn't matter. Like, isn't it obvious what happened? Isn't it obvious? I think we were unfair in a sense to John McCain. Like, it's fun to make fun of, right? But it's clear he wants more than this resolution offers. That's not complicated. And he's struggling with that. And they've crossed some red line, that whatever the hell that means. And like, they've used chemical weapons. And now Obama's like, oh, fuck. Now what do I do? Like, because it's freaking hard. Like, this is
red
tough.
line is the cool way of what would have been in the past the line in the sand.
Right.
That's antiquated now.
Right.
That was red.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So let me read this one thing that I thought from this is from a BBC.
This is a great
report
point
about,
Ben makes.
About our use of white phosphorus in Fallujah, and it's worth reading. It says the Department of Defense confirmed to the BBC white phosphorus has been used as an incendiary anti-personnel weapon in Fallujah. But here's the quote that's really telling from the Department of Defense. When you have enemy forces in covered positions that your high explosive artillery rounds are not having an impact on, and you wish to get them out of those positions, one technique is to fire a white phosphorus round into the position because the combined effects of the fire and smoke, and in some cases, the terror brought about by the explosion on the ground will drive them out of the holes so you can kill them with high explosives.
Yeah. We should not do that. I think it's strong to say we should not do this. You could do that also by firing mustard gas into the hole to get them out of there. You shouldn't do that either because it's banned internationally.
So you're telling me that we're invading them because they use chemical weapons? Chemical weapons.
Obviously.
So, but why?
We should not in that context.
Yeah,
Now,
of course, we all agree that we shouldn't use
they're
that white
saying that we
phosphorus.
used it in Fallujah in that context. For the most part, white phosphorus is used as the same thing you use some sort of
False.
smoke grenade or mortar.
Okay.
Not in this case.
Pause.
Apparently not. I'm against
pause.
that.
On TikTok, I put in a video of birth defects caused by the white phosphorus, or was it depleted? I forgot which one, but from Fallujah defects, they pulled it down immediately. I tried to put up a video of the birth defects caused in Fallujah on YouTube. They flagged that video and pulled it down. So
He literally just downplayed the effects of white phosphorus on like a population. That's erroneous. That's wow.
Well, yeah, like I said, I don't know if it's from depleted uranium or white phosphorus. Not that it matters. Neither should be used. But
Right.
what the U.S. did in Fallujah was so horrific that I cannot put in videos of that without getting banned on social media platforms. And yeah, he downplayed that. And in Fallujah, like, it's disgusting. Okay, look, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, chemical warfare is against international. It's against international law. It's like it's an infringement on international.
It's mostly because
law.
it does not distinguish. You're supposed to be the more directed and targeted the weapon, the better it is, because it can distinguish the difference between a civilian and a fighter. So that's why snipers are the best things. And the worst thing is things like bombs and chemical weapons that can't distinguish because you have to kill civilians at that point.
Yeah. And then the worst thing, I mean, so many bad things about chemical warfare, but like it kills soil, like the soil, like it kills the soil nutrients that makes agriculture possible. So in a country like Vietnam, when you do chemical warfare, a mostly agricultural country, the next generation not going to be able to grow food. Italy does chemical warfare against Ethiopia, throughout its entire occupation and attempted colonialism of it. And still in the 1980s, 1990s, Ethiopia's like soil is nil. And
is that where the starvation crisis came from in Ethiopia?
Yeah, I mean, Ethiopia is like, I mean, it had, consistent famines. I mean, 1968, there was a famine. 1984, there was a famine. I mean, from 1979 to 1991, Ethiopia was like in total war. So of course you can't really like grow food, but like that was compounded by the fact that like chemical warfare from the Italians killed like its soil. I mean, same thing with Vietnam. Like Vietnam, like the generation after, like they would try to grow rice, and like the rice that they would grow was like it was nil. It was completely unviable because of the napalm of Vietnam.
Unbelievable. Yeah. And I bet you I have not looked up Fallujah statistics, but we can for next week or whatever. I'm sure it's probably very similar is what I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I mean, and to add insult to injury, like you make it so Iraq can't grow food with the chemical warfare. And then when you overthrow its like sovereign government, you force them to import seeds from the West.
Wow. Okay. And speaking of Iraq and the sanctions and the starvation, literally Leslie Stahl asked Madeleine Albright a harder hitting question than Anna Kasparian. And I was like, are we too nice to, did we misjudge Mitt Romney? And she also praised like other fascists who are into Holocaust and not like the president of Estonia. So let's go ahead.
We should not do that.
But if you guys
That's
are
consistent.
convinced that all these people, all these hawks want to launch these missiles because of, but they're apparently A-okay with our own use of them.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it doesn't
Well,
pass the smell test.
Again, just
Jimmy
to be
has
very
the right
specific,
instincts
we're
all the
not,
time.
Talking about striking Syria because he used white phosphorus against a couple of people in a building. We killed 1,000 people with sarin gas.
So it's not the
They're both
squiggly line.
technically chemical.
Squiggly
No,
line.
it's a line between a couple of people who could be horribly burned by white phosphorus and 1,000 people who died through the use of sarin gas.
Are you bloody
Same thing as,
lying? Do you not know how
weapons
many?
of mass destruction. That was people
What
with sarin
the
gas.
hell is he
Big
talking
city.
about?
They're both weapons of mass destruction. Big
No,
difference.
they're not. You
I
mother.
just like our use of the word
Shut up.
terror.
Yeah, I don't want to do anything that causes terror.
So, and look, the apologists would say that's not necessarily weaponized white phosphorus. It's not going to kill them. It's not like sarin gas. It just scares the hell
Are
out
you
of
an
them.
idiot?
Terrorizes them, and it kind of burns them a little bit.
No,
So-
it
and
does
so
not.
they
It like
get
totally
up.
burns them to the bones. You mother.
Scares them.
It burns them to the bones.
It scares them. It kills them by the boatloads.
Many people
No. But white phosphorus is so bad. Like you cannot visit. Hold on. I will get you I think I have video of some Vietnam War veteran explaining what white phosphorus does. So it literally like you don't even have bones left because this Vietnam veteran mentions the effect of white phosphorus on a population does not take any politics. It just takes 1 second of Googling. So this is inexcusable. Like I would not make a statement about, I don't even feel confident about, like a few minutes ago, I disclaimed that I had not checked what the statistics in Fallujah were. And I only am confident about the statistics that I check. So I always disclaim things that I don't check so that people are not given the wrong information. And he's so loose in fact. And he has thousands of interns. I could see a few like people who work for him around. One of them should have been Googling to check what the effects of white. This is Wikipedia first paragraph kind of knowledge that he was misinforming people about.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I went off on a rage, but this just infuriates. Like I understand if there is a political thing, if Cenk gives a bad strategy, sure, I can forgive that. But when you get the first page of Wikipedia, like the first paragraph of Wikipedia, kind of like that level of research wrong, that's just unforgivable for that. There's no excuse for that, in my opinion, other than laziness.
I mean, and like, okay, this was like what, like a decade after? So this is like in the same kind of like decade or so time frame as like the Iraq War, and you were active during the Iraq War. So it's just like
he was old, and he also like one of the times I've praised Cenk is his speech against the Iraq War, where he wasn't a fully formed adult when the Iraq War started, so his memories should have been super fresh.
Yeah. I mean, and that kind of like begs the question, like, did the Cold War really end? Because it's like, who are you targeting? You're targeting the Arab Republic of Syria, a Ba'athist government. You targeted the Republic of Iraq, a Ba'athist, government.
Yeah.
Did
Can you tell people what Ba'athist is for people who are not familiar?
Yeah. So, okay. I mean, where to start? Okay. Well, basically, Baathism is revolutionary Arab nationalism plus socialism. Scientific socialism equals Baathism. It comes out of basically an Arab Christian was dissatisfied with the European sort of communist experience, and so said that like the Arab people need to
what Mao did with Chinese socialism, Chinese characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, yeah. Even Lenin tells you to change socialism to your own local characteristics.
Yeah, and that's kind of where Baathism comes out. Now, Baathism is kind of, because it's revolutionary nationalism, it sort of subordinates class struggle to like more nationalist ends.
But the first problem that most countries have in that region is you bloody colonial imperialists and scumbags need to get the bleep out, right?
Yes.
So I think for that point, it is okay. I like Lenin says it's cool. Mao says it's cool. And I agree. Like at that point, just to get your imperialist scum out, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. And then after class struggle stuff. But yeah, like the Cold War, like really isn't over. You have these, because you're taking the side of Wahhabis, you're taking the side of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And
utter scum of the earth.
Right. And the state of Israel against these like revolutionary Arab nationalists
that are multi-ethnic governments as opposed to both genocidal regimes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And of course, they knew that the Cold War, is still going after the overthrow of the Soviet Union. They knew that. They know that this is just an extension of trying to like get rid of anti-capitalist
China.
Arab regimes. Yeah.
Now it's going to be China. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But what were you saying about the coal? So you were talking about Iraq and Syria. So continue with your point. Sorry, I just distracted you.
I was pretty much, finished. Of course, like I support Baathism and I support like Arab unity, of course. Like, I support like an Arab nationalism that would, see the Arab people having like a national homeland, right? Like, and not like the Middle East and North Africa, but actually having like a place that is like the center of gravity for the Arab population of the globe, It
used to be Damascus back in the day before imperialism.
Yeah. If Iraq and Syria and Lebanon can unite,
and like way back in the day with I forgot his name.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, I agree with you on that. And the word for balkanization, do you know what the word used to be before balkanization?
Partition.
No, Lebanonization.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they got these like right-wing Christians to revolt to create this like partition from, I forgot what, Syria or Iraq or both to create Lebanon. It was just horrible. Mm-hmm. And then there was a big civil war, whatever. But yeah, you're right. But that's the biggest threat to the imperial core is okay. So it's kind of funny. I'm a little what's the right word? Okay. So okay, can you keep a secret? Janet, please delete this part. But I was really giddy because I just bought victimsofcommunism.us for $14.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out how to unveil this like site because Florida so it's like a perfect opportunity to teach people about it says they want to teach, and so I'm like, yeah, go for it. Okay. Who should we start with? Hitler, Mussolini, I don't know, or whatever other Nazi you like. So this is going to be about you know how I always say that Lenin has an opinion about everything. So This is his opinion on margarine. Go ahead.
Let's see. Recently, the French magazine La Revue Scientifique published data on the production of margarine in various countries. Those data were an additional reminder to the fact that noticed long ago that the diet of the people deteriorates as capitalism develops.
McDonald's.
As everyone knows,
literally, Lenin predicted how the obesity diet deteriorates as capitalism develops. We're having the obesity crisis, like other diabetes, whatever other crap that I forgot, whatever the chronic health conditions that Americans face.
Yeah.
Okay.
As everyone knows, margarine is fat from which stearin has been removed, processed by a special method. From it, an artificial substance is made known as margarine butter. Margarine production is the principal European countries has assumed very large portions. Germany produces 12.5 million poods.
Poods. Okay, poods is like a Tsarist Russian unit of weight. It's a little over a kilogram. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I did not know that. Britain, 7.5 million poods, and so on. Margarine is cheaper than real butter. Butter is too costly for the vast majority of the population in capitalist countries. The workers earn so little that they have to buy cheap, low-grade substitute food products, and yet the workers are the chief consumers. There are millions of workers and only hundreds of capitalists, and so output of cheap substitutes is growing daily and hourly, along with the unheard of luxury of a handful of millionaires.
And the billionaires now, but go on.
Yeah, definitely. The wealth of the bourgeoisie is growing, so the poverty and want of the proletariat and of the masses of small proprietors, peasants, partisans, and petty traders who are being ruined. Remarkably enough, margarine consumption is highest in the very countries which are particularly famous as producers of large quantities of the finest natural butter.
I wonder if this is, somebody should check up the statistics of margarine consumption in Wisconsin. But go on. I'm just curious if this is also true.
That would be a good thing to look up.
Okay.
Remarkably enough, margarine consumption is highest in the very countries which are particularly famous as producers of large quantities of the finest natural butter. To find out how great the consumption of margarine is, it is necessary to divide the whole amount of margarine produced in the country concerned, adding import and subtracting export by the number of inhabitants.
Yep.
It appears that the greatest consumer of margarine is Denmark. 16.4 kilograms.
Okay, so so 16 kilograms is one pood. Okay, 16.4. Okay, go ahead.
A year per inhabitant. Next comes Norway, 15 pounds. Germany, 7.5
I think this is probably a typo for poods, and I'm going to check on the original Russian. But go on.
Okay, yeah. Denmark is the richest country for butter output. Danish butter, real butter, ranks among the finest grades. The world's biggest and richest city, London, population including that of the suburbs, about 6 million, prefers Danish butter to any other and pays the highest price for it. Danish well-to-do peasants, above all of the Danish capitalists, make a good deal of money from the butter trade, and yet Denmark is the world's biggest consumer of substitute butter, margarine. What is the explanation? It is very simple. The vast majority of the Danish population, like that of any capitalist country, consists of workers and propertyless peasants. They cannot afford real butter. Even the middle peasants in Denmark, being in need of money, sell abroad the butter they produce on their farms and buy the cheap butter margarine for themselves. The wealth of the Danish capitalists is growing, and so are the poverty and want of the Danish workers and peasants. The same thing is happening here in Russia. Very long ago, some 40 years back, when it became fashionable to set up cheese dairies and artels in the countryside.
Artels means artisan cartels, like artisan
networks.
Like little, those fancy cheese people, like who make really, really fancy cheeses.
Yeah.
Well, I forgot. Artisans, whatever. Okay. Is that, I don't know. Okay. The really fancy cheeses made up by a really rich people. Okay, whatever.
Okay. Engelhardt, a Democratic writer, noted that the peasants, being in need of money, sold their milk and butter while their children starved to death. The fact has been noted many times since then. Cheese production is growing. The production of milk for sale is growing, and the few well-to-do peasants and the merchants are becoming rich, while the poor become poor. The children of poor peasants left without milk die in enormous numbers. Child mortality in Russia is incredibly high. Fairly often milk is sold to cheese dairies, from which the peasants get skimmed milk for their own consumption. The rich have the profits and growing production of milk, while the workers and peasants have margarine and skimmed milk. Such is capitalist reality, which liberal and official scholars are at such pains to embellish.
Okay, so Lenin also disapproved of skim milk. Do we know what the health and I don't even care.
Well, the difference is the skim milk is what they take off. Like, so the fat is really, what gave people the calories, gave them, you know what I mean? Like,
so
so
when
if
if you
milk
were
has like no calories, it's basically like watery milk. That's
okay, got it. So if like, so it's like it's something you wouldn't want to feed newborn babies with, right?
Because like the lack of like nutrients, like that comes from the processing of skim milk.
Okay. Anyways, so he's completely right, and we should check out is there like a new substitute for margarine that we have in the US, or are we still at margarine?
We still use margarine. I actually worked for, my client was Unilever, who owns most of the margarine in America. And we have to ship margarine as basically as a plastic.
Why?
So there had to be, because of some of the chemicals that are in it.
Crazy.
Yeah. So it is you have to have a material data sheet on it, where other food products you don't.
Oh, what does that mean?
It's a hazardous to ship.
Oh, like does it explode, catch on fire?
It's a plastic. There's a chemical in it that's considered a plastic, and it's just
okay. That's weird. I had no idea. Okay, so it can't be that good for you. So Lenon's okay. I'm glad Lenin has an opinion on margarine. By the way, Darrell, thanks again. Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, so it's funny. So in college, I had a Facebook page, and I dedicated it to a blog, and I made blogs about anti-capitalism and global imperialism, and different revolutionary movements. I corresponded with Telesur. After college let out, I got rid of that. And to nowadays, I'm on TikTok primarily. My name is Global Citizen for Global _
We'll put down a link here in the description box.
Yes. So you can find me on TikTok. I've had a couple of Instagrams post college. I think I'm thinking about getting back on Instagram again. So if I did a good job this time and am invited back, I will have an Instagram to supplement my TikTok. But now Global _ Citizen for that's my TikTok handle.
Okay, well, follow him on TikTok and follow us on TikTok too. We're growing big. Now we almost have 4,000 followers, so we almost have as much as Janet, right? And with that, thank you so much for coming, and hope you can join us some other time, because this was very fun. And thanks again for being a last minute person. We really, really, really appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for making the show happen. So thank you so much.